Welcome to another deep dive. If you are joining us today, you are really in for something special.
Oh, absolutely. It's a fantastic topic.
We have this huge stack of notes, original lyrics, and visual concepts right in front of us. And our mission today is to completely deconstruct this incredible indie music and art project.
Right, we're looking at the original song and the music video for Thunderborn.
Yeah, by the artist Jim, or, going by his project name, Jim Finds the Frequency.
Which is such a great moniker, by the way.
It really is. And our goal here is to figure out how he's using all these classical art references, really specific visual symbolism, and honestly, just this bold sense of sensuality.
A very bold sense.
Right. To capture this feeling of just unbridled vitality. We were basically tracking this cinematic journey from being frozen in stone to literally commanding lightning.
It's a massive transition to track. I mean, it's profound. But I think to really grasp the sheer scale of what's happening in Thunderborn, we first have to set a baseline.
A baseline of where he usually operates creatively.
Exactly. We need to look at who this artist is, because under the moniker Jim Finds the Frequency, his usual vibe is, well, it's deeply rooted in atmospheric, introspective, cinematic pop.
Yeah, very quiet, very thoughtful.
Right. If you look at the notes from his 2024 album, Mandala Melodies, or even his self-titled 2025 release, the recurring themes are presence, attention, and this deep emotional resonance.
He actually describes the broader project as a hymn to attention.
Yes. And he uses this phrase, erotic spirituality.
Okay, let's actually break that down a bit, because for you listening, when you hear hymn to attention or erotic spirituality, what does that actually mean? They're fairly dense terms.
They are dense, but they point to something very grounding. When he talks about erotic spirituality in his earlier work, he's referring to finding this deep, almost physical connection to a really quiet moment.
Like a stillness.
Yes, a still humming attunement. Imagine just sitting in a quiet room and becoming intensely bodily aware of the space around you. It's a slow-burning vibe.
Where logic and instinct kind of dance together.
Precisely. The focus is entirely on tuning into a hidden inner signal. It's very restrained.
But wait, if his entire brand is built on this quiet, slow-burning contemplation, what triggers a shift to suddenly commanding lightning?
That is the big question.
Because reading through these lyrics and looking at the visual treatment for Thunderborn, it's a staggering leap. I mean, the track doesn't just hum, it roars.
It completely shatters that previous mold.
It really makes you want to look directly at the artist and just ask Jim, what inspired that sudden thunder god energy?
And that abrupt contrast is the engine driving this entire project. If his normal work is the quiet prelude, then Thunderborn is the storm finally breaking.
So how does he visualize that? The video starts in a museum, right?
Yes, it opens in a classical museum. And that setting immediately grounds you in these ideas of history, stillness, antiquity.
Right. Museums are quiet places. You're supposed to just look, not touch.
Exactly. And the central visual conceit here is that the artist portrays himself as two very distinct famous statues within this museum.
The first one being a version of Rodin's iconic The Thinker, sitting right there in the shadows.
Yes.
Now, I understand using classical statues to represent antiquity, but isn't the thinker usually associated with just, being stuck in your own head?
That's a very common misconception.
Right, because how does a symbol of deep, motionless thought translate to the explosive physical power we see later in the video?
Well, that's exactly what the artist is subverting here. The thinker has become this cultural shorthand for passive daydreaming. But if you look at Rodin's actual intent...
Then it's clearly channeling here.
Right. And the visual cues in the video show it.
Yep.
This figure is thinking with his entire body. Every single muscle is tense.
Oh, yeah. The toes are gripping the rock.
The fist is pressed hard against the mouth. The back is coiled. It is a state of full-body exertion.
So the intellectual struggle is actually intensely physical.
Yes.
It's less about daydreaming and more like the pressure building inside a sealed boiler before it just ruptures.
That's a perfect analogy. It represents the internal prelude to transformation. In this video, the thinker captures the pre-storm stillness, its repressed vitality.
He's literally wrestling with creation.
Exactly, building up this immense internal pressure. The lyrics actually mention centuries of stillness. which perfectly encapsulates the state where primal energy is tightly coiled but hasn't been allowed to release yet.
And that sets up this brilliant contrast with the second statue we see. The notes describe a figure carved like Michelangelo's David.
The ultimate symbol of ideal physical form.
Right, wide shoulders, carved lines, this incredibly imposing physical presence. But unlike the first statue, this one does not stay frozen.
No, it wakes up.
It wakes up, and the visual descriptions know that it wakes up hungry.
And the relationship between those two figures is the absolute thematic core of the video. The thinker stays in the shadows, he acts as this quiet witness, while the David-like conqueror awakens and begins to summon the storm.
Which sends a very specific message, doesn't it?
It does. It says that true explosive liberation is not born from mindless brute force. The fact that the brooding intellectual thinker watches the thunder god awaken proves that this massive release of physical energy is born directly from that intense contemplation.
The quiet labor of the mind fuels the explosive liberation of the body.
Exactly. Even gods start in quiet reflection before they roar.
I love that. And the roar in this project is incredibly literal. The transition between these two states is just visually stunning.
A cracking marble.
Yes. I completely geeked out over this visual. The cold marble of this David-like statue literally cracks open. And under the stone, the veins aren't just pumping blood.
They're pulsing with lightning.
Visibly pulsing with lightning. The blood of God's pumping hot.
And that visual of the marble cracking serves as this powerful metaphor for breaking what we might call the cage of perfection.
The cage of perfection. That's a great phrase.
Think about the nature of a marble statue in a museum. It's flawless, it's heroic, it's widely admired by everyone who walks by.
But it's also completely untouchable. Trapped.
Utterly passive. It exists only to be observed.
And for you listening, we've all had those moments, right, where you feel like you're just playing a part perfectly.
Oh, absolutely.
People might admire how well you have it together at work or in your personal lives, but internally, you feel completely static. You're performing a flawless role, but you feel like untouched stone.
You're an exhibit.
Exactly. And this track seems to be tapping right into that universal desire to shatter the stasis.
It's the ultimate liberation arc. You're shifting from being a passive object of distant admiration to becoming an active force. You go from being an exhibit in the museum to controlling the very atmosphere of the room.
And the lyrics anchor this transition so beautifully. The opening lines set the scene perfectly. Frozen marble perfection, carved hard and tight, veins pulsing lightning, craving the strike tonight.
And the musical structure mirrors that gathering storm, too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
The track uses this massive repeated hook where he chants, "Thunderborn."
Right.
It builds this rhythmic momentum that actively pushes the listener toward this electric high.
That repetition creates a sense of inevitability. Once the first crack appears in the marble, you know the storm cannot be contained.
It's breaking out.
And what's particularly interesting is how the narrative evolves once that physical form fully awakens. The track moves away from the coldness of stone and leans heavily into a deeply sensual undercurrent.
The imagery completely shifts here. It moves from rigid antiquity to something very physical and alive. The notes highlight this motif of silk against thunder,
I love that phrasing.
where the hard lines of the statue soften just enough to crave contact, and the muscles remain taut with this slow-building hunger.
The artist frames this as primal desire. It's the sensory shock of stone feeling heat for the very first time.
That's intense.
It is, and to actualize that desire on screen, the video introduces a visual counterpart to the awakened thunder god.
The muse figure.
Yeah, the muse.
And the source material introduces her using very striking atmospheric imagery. She steps out of the shadows of the museum, and she's described with cascading midnight hair, silk curves, and warm jade skin.
Skin that actually catches the sparks flying off of him.
Yes, the sparks literally reflect off her.
What is critical to analyze here is the thematic function she serves. The notes explicitly mention that the video utilizes layers of fantasy without falling into overt exoticism.
Right, it's not a cliche.
Exactly. This interaction isn't about the thunder god simply dominating the space or claiming a passive subject. It's about a profound magnetic reciprocity.
She is described as seductive and free.
And she matches his sudden, violent lightning with her own slow burn.
So it's the friction of two incredibly powerful forces meeting, rather than one force just overwhelming the other.
Spot on. The song constructs a dynamic where the primal rush of his newfound power meets the grounding softness of her presence.
Matching fire with fire.
Yes, the air between them is described as thick with charge. It elevates the sensuality from just a physical interaction to a meeting of elemental forces.
Let's look at how the lyrics actually handle that meeting. The track says, "Craving silk-skinned sirens with midnight almond eyes. They call to my blood, let the fever remain."
There's such a palpable hunger in those lines.
There really is. It seems the song uses this bold sensuality to make the awakening feel earned. Inevitable, even.
It's not just power for the sake of power.
No, it's power that has been awakened by a deep, undeniable desire.
It fuses the eroticism with the epic grandeur of the mythic awakening. Think about it. The body, which spent centuries as a monument meant only to be looked at, now demands reciprocity. It demands interaction.
It becomes embodied hunger.
Yes. And because this eruption of desire directly follows the deep muscular contemplation of the thinker, the sensuality feels like a necessary conclusion.
The prolonged stillness ends, and the craving begins.
Right.
And when you have centuries of pent-up desire suddenly released, it does not manifest as a polite request.
Not at all.
It manifests as absolute, world-shaking confidence. And you can really hear that hubris in the chorus of the track. The notes describe it as Zeus-level swagger fused with modern desire.
Zeus-level swagger is the perfect way to put it.
He declares, "I rise, I glide, I own the storm."
There is zero humility in that declaration, which raises a really interesting question about the thematic core of the project. Is this sheer arrogance, or is it something else?
What do you think?
Well, when you analyze the context, every flex, every roar, every sway in the video is a deliberate rejection of the centuries of restraint that preceded it.
So the swagger is essentially a required part of the rebellion.
It's entirely earned. When you've been frozen in marble, burdened by vision, overthinking your every move, holding back your true potential.
You do not break out of that shell quietly.
Exactly. The journey from being a vulnerable, frozen picture of perfection to an invincible, unbound force of vitality demands that level of unapologetic confidence.
It's basically the ultimate story of going from being totally stuck in your own head to finally letting loose and taking complete control of your life.
Yes?
The track presents empowerment as an absolute spectacle. He asserts, "No relic, no statue, I'm flesh made divine, hunting that exotic spark, making it mine." He is entirely reclaiming his domain.
It's a celebration of becoming too big, too hungry, and too alive to be contained by a pedestal. The song really serves as an encouragement to own your desires, to stop endlessly pondering your potential.
Because the thinker is the necessary prelude, but the thunder god is the ultimate payoff.
Precisely.
It's a powerful reminder for all of us listening to just feel that charge. Stop being the quiet, reliable statue and let the lightning hit you.
Just let the storm break.
Let's trace the full arc of what we've explored today. We started in the quiet, atmospheric prelude of Jim's usual work, characterized by still attention and quiet courage.
The erotic spirituality.
Right. Then we watched the storm break with Thunderborn. We analyzed the profound visual contrast between the two statues, the shadowed, full-body intellectual struggle of the thinker set against the explosive physical awakening of the David-like conqueror.
We saw the cold, untouchable marble of perfection shatter to reveal veins of blazing lightning.
We examined the magnetic reciprocal chemistry of silk meeting thunder. And finally, the mythic swagger of an artist completely claiming his domain. It's an intricate journey from complete stasis to unbound vitality.
It truly is a remarkable narrative achievement.
It really is.
But we've spent this time focusing on the explosive release that occurs when stillness finally shatters and the undeniable thrill of that unbound energy.
Yeah.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with a different angle to consider. Think about the nature of a storm.
Okay.
What happens to the thunder god once the tempest inevitably passes? Energy, by its very definition, cannot sustain an absolute peak indefinitely.
That's true. It has to fade eventually.
Right. Does the lightning eventually cool? Does that electric primal hunger settle and crystallize back into a new, evolved kind of marble?
Oh, wow.
It forces us to wonder if the storm god eventually returns to the shadows of the museum. Sitting back down to begin the deep, quiet contemplation of the thinker all over again. Exactly. It suggests that this isn't a one-time awakening, but rather an ongoing cycle of the creator.
The cycle of the creator. From stone to storm and eventually back to stone again, preparing for the next great awakening. That is a brilliant thought to end on.
It's something to mull over, for sure.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the mythic electric world of Thunderborn. We hope you leave this conversation feeling a little more unbound, a little more alive, and ready to act on your own creative fire.
Feel the charge.
Until next time.